Hello and welcome to this video brought to you by Louis Art. My name is Emmanuel Okafo, and in this video I will be going over the new update to Hairbrick 5.0. So if you have a copy for Hairbrick, a new version is available for download on Blender Market. So yeah, let's get started. So if you have a previous version, you want to first uninstall it, restart Blender, and then install the new version. Just typically how the way you go about installing new add-on. So while you have that all set up, we can start the tutorial. So one thing you would notice, first of all, is kind of the change in UI. I found this looked more professional compared to the previous one. I was kind of experimenting with putting this buttons at the bottom, but yeah, it didn't. It felt clunky, so pushing it back to the side was more professional and just making it bolder, and I like that. Some other thing you will notice is just some rearrangement of the panels. Previously, the hair selection set was before the radius. The mesh to hair was kind of placed randomly. So, but now the panel has been rearranged to make a lot of features more obvious. The radius, just moving things around to clean it up. But apart from the UI changes, there have been like improvements in the workflow and like the final quality of your output. So the first one is we now support pattern for your interpolated hair. So I will give you an example of that. So let's just generate a quick hair and apply that. So we can go ahead and enable interpolated hair, and we can increase the density some more. So you would notice we have the old image texture mask that you can use to kind of mask out a certain region. Now we have pattern. This comes in quite handy when you're trying to groom everything inside one hair, but you want to define certain regions for the hairs to kind of interpolate around that region. They should handle each region separately. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So if you look below here, we have a new texture input, which is the pattern texture. So by default it's enabled, but you can always choose to turn it off if it's not serving you. So we can go ahead and create a new texture. Typically with when creating most image, it's advised to start with white since it's visible. Hairbrick has been configured for that, so white is nothing, and then black is the intensity. You can always invert that, but it's just visually easier to when you're able to see your model before you paint it. But with the pattern, it's something we cannot get around. You have to start with a black texture, because with black texture, it's telling it do nothing. It's just neutral ground. So we'll start with just a 1K texture and leave it as untitled, and we'll just create a new image. So you can click on this brush to go into your texture painting window, and it has gone ahead and set everything up for you. Yeah, so let's create one region. So I'm going to use a red brush and just paint this part. So it might look like nothing is happening, but something is actually happening. To make it more obvious, we'll use a nice brush with some fall off. So if we paint that here, we can start saying that we have this region by itself. So the fall off of your brush kind of plays a major factor to this. So I'm going to actually use a different color, and let's use something like this. So we can start patterning different regions. So the blue colors are kind of handled separately, and the red colors are handled separately. So maybe in the future, I would make the modifiers being able to, you'll be able to mask out modifiers with pattern. But at least this is just a nice introduction to it. Rules while using it, it's important you try to use a very kind of constant fall off, because now we use like fall off with we use brush with just smooth fall off. You would have or encounter problem when you use the clump, so you get something like this of hairs kind of behaving weird because they don't really belong to any kind of part island, so that's why they're kind of misbehaving. You can try to hide that, but yeah, well, ideally what you want to do is let's grab the fill it all black, and ensure your fall off is set to constant. And now we can paint this, so it's not going to be as obvious, but it's actually doing something, and it becomes more obvious when you actually need it, which we can actually show you an example. Okay, so here's the example. I will just do the breakdown. So this is the guide curve, what we kind of started with, just a very rough groom, and then we added the children hair, which we can use the texture map to quickly see how we painted it. I added this new slider, which is trim. So let's say you're grooming and you want to quickly see things. If we switch to the strand mode, we can adjust this. So this slider allows it easier for you to, makes it easy for you to quickly see like the scalp. Previously you could do that with adding the trim effect, but I just workflow to speed up everything. It's easy to just have it there. Don't worry, no matter what you do here, if you forget to increase this during your render time, it's just going to render. It's going to skip the trim during rendering. But yeah, we have the mask created, and it looks good. So we can, so this is how it looks with pattern. So if I turn this off, even though we had the mask kind of created for the center point, telling it this is where I want the pattern to happen, but it's not really happening, because the default pattern that came with the interpolated modifier was based on actual mesh island, so you would have to split your hair cap to kind of get the nice pattern. But I came across a video that kind of showed how you could use image texture, so I was like, yeah, that's no brainer. It has to come in. Yeah, so with image texture, so this is what we have it looking like. It's very, very constant fall off. We have the green region and the red region, so you can create multiple different regions of your hair, and it's going to give you different effects. So let's say we make this blue. So now this whole region is the blue region, as you can see. So we can hide this for a bit. So we have separate region. Obviously you want to kind of clean it up and ensure it's looking nice and clean. So you can use that to create nice regions. So without with. So this can definitely improve your overall workflow. Yeah, so that's the pattern pattern by texture feature. Now we can go on to the next feature, which is, we're going to skip the simulation for now, but we'll come back to it. I'll go ahead and save this. So the next is the curve selection. So this has like a lot of cool improvement. So the first improvement is, let's quickly, we can go into the curve edit mode and just select bunch of splines. We can add this and call this number 1. So it creates like a visual representation in case you want to kind of see that section you created of your curve selection in object mode. So it's just this, it's like an extra tube on top of it, which you can set your custom color to like differentiate it if you find it useful. But if you're not happy with it, you can always turn it off. You have some parameters to control like you can increase the sample of the visual geometry, or you could play with the radius if in case you want it bigger or smaller. Just nice, nice tool there. So it creates a new material for every other one. So if we invert the selection and select 2, and if we turn this on, you can see we have this. Yeah, so we'll turn off that visual selection. But one of the most improvement in the hair selection set is previously, if you want to select a collection, you would have to go in and click on the select to select it, which is no big deal, but like it builds up over time. And then but now you can just double click on each item and it will select it. So it just makes it intuitive in that you can quickly select it. And if you want to deselect, you can hold down Control and double click on any item. So select with double click, and if you hold on Control double click, it's going to deselect it. That's just improvement of usage of the system. I wanted to try something before we move on. So I'm not really sure, but if we kind of remove this texture pattern, we can still see we still have some pattern because of the path by texture. Just wanted to drop that in there. So that's cool. Next, let's go into, we're going to come back to the hair simulation because this got lots of improvement. But for the modifier, the major improvement is for the coiling and the clump. So it got like a bit of upgrade. For the coiliness, the previous one gave you a nice result quickly because it kind of had a lot of things combined. That's the default coiliness that came with the blend that came as Blender Essential, but it presented a lot of challenge in always tweaking things, kind of making it work. But now I kind of broke it into 2 different modifiers. So to really see it, you would have to add the clump. So it then clumps the hair after the coiliness. So you can play with the fall off slightly. And just basically everything you expect from a coily hair is just less hassle. And yeah, so you have to tweak that. For the clump, one thing we added was the twist factor. So you could add like noise and stuff, but this kind of twists the hair itself rather than kind of wait for you don't like, you could just get a decent looking hair just by adding clump and just enabling the twist. So this is it without twist, and this is it with twist. So it kind of adds a separate nice level of detail, which you have parameters to kind of adjust. By default, randomness is at 1, but this is everything even, so some randomness is nice. You get different level of twist. You can also add subdivision in case you want to add some more details to the twist. So let's say you want to get more details, so raising the twist subdivision will allow you twist even more, so it may probably even turn it into somewhat like a noise. But typically you don't want to kind of twist it a lot. You just want to you want to just like break off those cleanliness you get from the default clump, and it can give you a nice starting point that you can now start playing. So if we can add like twirl, and we'll place it above the clump, and then we lock the ends, and for the angle, reduce it to 0, but we want to play with the offset. So just kind of give it some noise. And if we bring off, if you didn't know, you can select each curve, each modifier, and click on this tool panel, and it's going to take you straight into the geometry nodes. And from here, let's say you want to switch node, so you can select lump, click on it, and it's going to switch the node. So let's go back to twirl. So for the factor, I'm going to add like a spline parameter, and then we need to make this obvious. So then I'll add like a color ramp quickly, so that we twirl everything except the root. So, and now we just kind of create a nice noise there, and then we can add stray hair, bring it all together, and that's how quickly you can just have a nice decent looking hair. So now let's go into simulation. So for the simulation, it's still the same workflow, but it's a lot smarter now, more compact, more cleaner. So we can just click on add physics. If you've not used the hair simulation, this point count is basically like the level of detail of simulation. So if you use a small value, like for example, you have a curve, okay, and right now we have 2 points. So these 2 points are basically what these are referring to. So if we increase subdivide it some more, the more subdivision allows us to capture more details in the simulation, because it basically gives us more edges and faces to simulate. But less edges would also make the simulation faster, but you will lose some details. Also, you would with less edges. So let's say the default hair has like 8 points, and then you set 7 points. It's still going to work. The only thing is the shape, and the shape that is going to simulate is going to be based off 7 points. Though at the end, it's going to revert back to, let's say if you had like default 8 points and you simulated with 7 points, in the end of everything is going to get you back to 8 points, so that if you have modifiers that rely on a certain amount of subdivisions that you already had, it's not going to mess that up. It's just going to mess with the simulation. So I can actually show you that. So let's say how many points do we have here? I mean, you could use strings to determine that, or we could just count. I'll disable this for now. So if I remember, we have 12, I'm sure, since I generated the hair. Okay, so instead of 12, I'm gonna use like 6 and hit OK. And you can see in the root we lost some points. It's still gonna simulate. It's just the overall shape of it is going to kind of be affected. You can always go back, remove it, and reapply your hair simulation, or you can work with that and use the collision modifier to push up any hair, especially if you're trying to work optimally. Okay, so let's just go with 8 for this instance. It's going to do the trick, and it's going to give us faster simulation. And here we go. We still have it penetrating. You know what, let's actually do 12. Okay, so you see we have less of that. Yeah, so by default the simulation quality is set to 4. You can reduce it to like 1 to just get fast feedback, and there you go. So now you can move your character and it works. So let's go over some of the features so we can actually disable some of this to get faster feedback. And one cool thing about the, before I go for that, one cool thing is that you can simulate this, add your hair. It doesn't really affect. So what's slowing it down with the children hair enabled is just the children hair being calculated. That's why bake down geometry node exists. But yeah, so the children hair has been calculated. Maybe I should incorporate that to also bake the geometry node, but it's a bit buggy. We shall see in the future. But yeah, if you can disable the children hair, but even after your simulation, you can still make modification to your modifiers. So we can move this couple of frames, and it has simulated, so you can still go ahead and add like noise. It's not going to affect the simulation because it's just only affecting the base guide curve. Okay, so let's see. My mouse is acting weird. Okay. Let's see the features. So the first stuff you see here is a nice icon. So I don't know what you guys think of this. You can let me know in the comments, or you can message me on this Discord or Blender Market. I thought this was unique. It's a bit playful, but oh well. With this icon, you can disable the whole simulation stuff, and it reverts back to your default kind of surface deform setup. So yep. And then this brush is actually quite important because underneath everything is a cloud modifier system, and you can always see that physics here. And this I actually had an opportunity to use like a real like velvet simulation for the hair directly on the curve. um I actually went quite far with adding it to Hairbrick already, but it it brought lots of problems that the current hair system had, and especially the default Blender Essential pack, which Hairbrick kind of used some of it. So it presented some issue, and even with surface deform, just how you because currently to actually make the surface deform work with clump, you have to move it to the bottom. So it's a known issue by the developers, and using that simulation kind of made it obvious. And but one thing this gives you that doesn't give you is the ability to like have real control, since it's already like a matured system. I mean the cloud simulation, so you can really control things. If like most of the parameters are not enough here for you, you can always like actually edit the go to the cloud modify simulation and adjust it. So for a production standpoint, I felt this kind of offered more value. So the moment you kind of add it, it creates pin for the root of this object, which is going to say, hey, don't simulate. But if you want to have like a more measured simulation where it doesn't move a lot, it just moves by extreme movement, like most hair will, like when hairs are packed together, they tend to not move a lot. You can actually get that just by painting the weights. So if we set the weight to like 0.3, so we're painting it greenish. And so if you click on this brush, it will help you change mode and hide the stuff. So you would notice the hair is not just moving a lot, and it's maintaining its shape. So we can play with the hair mass. So we set this 0.07, and then we increase the hair quality, and there you have it. So a lot of controls are available to you. It supports self collision, it supports object collision. So to use the collision, you enable it. Come here, enable collision. You can play with the thickness depending on how much is pushing the hair apart. So the hair will not penetrate the object. Obviously supports like winds and like if you have force field in your scene, it's going to work. Yeah, so another important feature is the armature feature. So previously it had like a lot of sliders. So the what you just saw here is, at least previous, not long ago, is using object parenting. And what about if you have like a rig and your character is being moved by vertices? So we can do a kind of version of that. So I have this rig character, badly weight painted, but oh well. So we can add physics. We can add that previously. So if we play it now, if we move the hair with the armature, we can see nothing is happening. So is everything broken? So I could make it automatic, but I don't want to assume your workflow. So by default, it's just a child-parent relationship. So once you have your rig, all you need to do is just click on this bone icon, and that's all you need to do. And when you play your animation, it works. So previously you had to input target, you had to specify, but now it's quite smart. So if I remove the armature object, I delete it and click on this, it's going to switch the parent back to this object. So it knows when you have an armature object. So once you have, if you're unsure, just click on this. It's going to take care of all your needs. One more pointer. So if we select the weight paint, you have bunch of copies here. So in a situation, let's make sure we have just this selected. In a situation where your initial weight paint, you kind of messed it up and you're like, oh no, how would it get back to root? What you can do is just go to one of the copies, this one, select. So those root has been stored. I duplicated them so that you can always kind of come back here, remove all, then select and pin back. So you get back your setup. Yeah, I think that's everything. No much changes to the mesh to hair. Still looking for a more accurate algorithm for selecting edges, but the default works. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment. Make sure you've gotten your own copy, and that will be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. So bye bye for now, and see you next time.